for giving me this platform to share my views and solving major of the queries. Being a member of the group, I have went through many queries which were being repetitive because as new members were being joined, they were not being able to understand the compliances which were required under income tax as well as under GST. So in this session, I would try to give everybody a basic idea and to make them understand the concepts which they need to focus on. Abhishek, if you could enable my screen sharing.
Yep. Sorry. Can you share now?
Is it visible?
Yep, I can see it.
So first we'll begin with the Income Tax Act, which is applicable to everybody, irrespective of their turnover and all. So first we'll cover the income tax. First we'll cover the definition of resident. Who is a resident of India? Who is a non-resident? Because majority of the clauses which are applicable and on what tax is based is dependent upon the residency of the person. So as we are aware, we call a person non-resident, we call a person resident. So in income tax, there are fewer criteria mentioned according to which it is determined. So first condition is an individual is said to be resident if he is more than 182 days in the previous year. In income tax, previous year is defined as the year for which we are computing our income. There are 2 years, previous year and assessment year. Assessment year is the year in which our income is assessed by the income tax. We earn the income in previous year and our income is offered to tax in assessment year. Like for current year, we have earned our income in previous year 2021. The year ended on March 2021, and now we'll file the return in the year 2021-22. So the assessment year would be referred as assessed 2021-22. So for determining whether a person is resident in India or not, the first criteria is he should be more than 182 days or more in India in the previous year. If suppose he is less than 182 days, then second condition which has been mentioned is he should be more than 60 days in the current year. Suppose if you are defining whether I am resident or not in the year 2020-21, I should be more 60 days or more in 2020-21, and the criteria is and you should be more than 365 days in the preceding 4 years. So in year 2020-21, I should be for 60 days or more, and for 4 years previous that year, so from 2016 to 2020, I should be 365 days or more. These criteria are necessary to further understand the implications. So these are the two major criteria on which residency is determined. In some situations where suppose a person is a member of a crew, or he leaves India for some employment, the employment can be for self-employment, like starting his own business or joining as an employee, or he is a citizen of India, but he is living outside India for many years. If these are the exceptions, then the criteria is defined as in the current year, that is the year 2020-21, he should be present for more than 182 days. And in preceding 4 years, he should be more than 365 days. One recent amendment which has been brought in by the government to avoid some people try to evade tax by not being present in any single country. So in that case, if a person is an Indian citizen or is of Indian origin means his father or grandparents are born in India. So if he is citizen of India or is of Indian origin and his Indian income exceeds 15 lakh, then he will be considered as resident if 365 days or more in preceding 4 years and 120 days in current year. So if he is not resident in other country, if he is not liable to pay tax in any other country, and his Indian income which can be defined as income from salary from India, income from business which he has set up in India, or interest or dividend, any income which accrues in India is called as Indian income. And if it exceeds 15 lakh rupees and he is not liable to pay tax in any other country, then he will be considered as resident of India. further, residents are classified into two objects: ordinary resident and not ordinary. I will explain you further why this classification is necessary. Resident and non-resident. Then resident is further classified under ordinary resident and not ordinary resident. The criteria given for not ordinary resident, that he should be non-resident for 9 out of 10 years. So if you are classifying yourself as resident, then you have to further look into whether you are ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. If you are non-resident, out of the 10, you're 9 years, you are non-resident, then you'll be considered as not ordinary resident. And if you were in India for less than 729 days in the past years, then you will be considered as not ordinary resident. These criteria are important because your taxation would be based as following. If you are a resident, then
Hey.
all your global income,
Prasad?
all of your, yes.
Yeah, I think there is an issue with the audio bit. I'm not sure whether that's something to do with the internet. Maybe you can turn off your video to save some bandwidth. I think
Okay.
that's a good suggestion. Just to
Are we able to hear me now?
Not so well. I think is there an alternate connection that you could use?
Yes, definitely. I will try.
Yeah.
Just can you give me a minute?
Sure. I think we're happy to wait in order to make sure that we can hear you clearly. So sorry for the tech issues. I think I was also not hearing him clearly, but I thought maybe it was just me. Thanks for raising this. So yeah, we will share the PPT once the session finishes. I can definitely see that he's put in a lot of effort. I'm also looking at it for the first time, so it will be great to see it.
Abhishek, are you able to hear me now?
This is much better now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, man. So I think we cannot see your screen now. I think
Yes,
you'll have to re-enable it.
Is it fine?
Yep, loud and clear.
So you guys want me to repeat the last slides or should I move further?
I think we are good. Maybe we can,
Yeah,
always...
I'll share the slide with you, with the presentation with you. The main important part is what I'm going to say now. The first one was basic. This is the important part which I wanted to cover. So I'm good to go.
Yep, I'll put myself on mute.
Okay. So after you have decided whether you are resident or non-resident, and if you are resident, you are ordinary resident or not ordinary resident, the further classification comes into consideration. So if you are a resident, if you are ordinary resident, you have been living in India for a long time, then all of your global income would be taxable in India, irrespective whether such income is earned outside India or such income is earned inside India or such income is collected on your behalf by somebody else. So any income worldwide, if you are an ordinary resident, it will become included in your income and you have to pay tax on the same. Further, if you are a not ordinary resident, as I mentioned in previous slides, if you are a not ordinary resident, then you have some exceptions. The only income which arises to you in India will be taxable to in India, and any income earned outside India, which you have generated outside India, but the control or the business is set up in India, then that would be included in your income. See, for example, I'm a chartered accountant and I have my office set up in India. When I provide my services to someone, say in USA for calculating his taxation, then that would be also included in my income. Why? Because my office is set up in India and that my business is controlled from India. So in that case, that income would be included in my income. But any income earned outside India, which has no connection in India, would not be included in my income. For non-residents, only the income which have been earned in India will be taxable in India, irrespective whether such business is set up in India or not. If I have set up my business in India and I am earning my income outside India, then that would not be included in my income. So only the income which is earned in India, like salary which I have received from Indian employer, or I have received some interest, or I have received any other income, business income from India, then that would be taxable for non-resident. Here the main important point comes in regarding foreign asset disclosure. If you are a resident in India, then you are required to disclose all your foreign assets. Only if you are an ordinary resident. In case you are not ordinary, or in case you are non-resident, then you are not required to disclose your foreign assets. If you have been outside India and you have purchased some assets, and now you have come to India, and your status is now that of an ordinary resident. So you have to remember that you have to disclose all your foreign assets which are required as per income tax, which usually requires your land and building, or you have any shares or any bank accounts. So once your criteria is defined, then you have to take further decisions as per that. So the most important section which all the you professionals see for is section 44 ADA. What government has tried, that there are so many sections of income tax which a normal man who is not involved in finance is not aware of. And why should he be aware of regarding so much taxes? So what government has brought in regarding small taxpayers, that those who are engaged in profession are allowed some exceptions. So what are those? We'll look into it. So section 44 ADA is applicable to resident professional. See, I have highlighted the word resident professional. So not every professional is allowed to get this benefit. Only the persons who are resident of India would get this benefit. So resident would include ordinary resident as well as not ordinary resident. So non-residents of India would be not covered under this section. So a resident professional who is individual or a partnership firm and whose turnover is up to 50 lakhs can claim the benefit under section 44 ADA. So a company or an LLP registered in India would not be covered under this section. The government has restricted this benefit to those whose receipts are up to 50 lakhs, as I said, because they want to give the benefit only to the small taxpayers or the small enterprises. Those whose receipts exceed 50 lakhs are by default would be having a proper accountant and would be preparing proper books. So this benefit has not been extended to them. So what are the professionals who are covered under this professionals? Government has mentioned a list who are covered under this professional, which include interior decorator, technical consultants, engineers, accountants, legal men who are engaged in medical, architecture, film artists, and there may be some other professionals which may be notified, and means government has reserved the right with them as to whom they want to include more. So in your most of the cases, it would be engineers and technical consultants. So major of you would be falling under section 44 ADA. So if you are resident and you are professional covered under the list, then you can claim the benefit of section 44 ADA. So what actually is section 44 ADA and what benefit can we get from it? So section 44 ADA states that your income can be presumed to be 50% of your total receipts. See what happens, how we derive our profit is, suppose we receive 1 lakh rupees from a person, we have incurred 15,000 for traveling, 10,000 for staying. So 15,000 plus 10,000, your total expense is 25,000. So 1 lakhs minus 25,000, your income comes to 75,000. So income and receipts are two different things. So your tax is calculated on your income. And how is your income calculated? Based on your total receipts minus total expenses. So 44 ADA gives you benefit that you need not maintain any books of accounts. You need not prove that I have incurred so much expenditure. You can straight away tell that I have earned 50% of my total receipt as my income. You are free to declare more than 50% of your income of your receipt as profit. So why we do this? Because if you declare more than 50%, your financials get strong. Means your balance sheet, as we say, your standing will be strong, as you show more profits, you can take you can get a good amount of loan. If you want to take some loan, you can take some loan with higher amount. Plus, you can take higher amount, higher sum assured insurance policies. So it is up to you. You can straight away declare 50%, or you can declare more than 50%. But if in case your profit is less than 50%, it may happen that you may hire some professionals for getting up sanctioned a big project, or your resources are less, so you take on some new assets. So in that case, it may some happen that in a particular year your profit may be less than 50%. So in that case, you have to get your books compulsorily audited under the income tax. Why this is so? Because a presumption is that a professional does not have to incur more expenses. Only the major expense would be his would be salary income or rent income, unless unlike business income where they have to purchase goods. So a professional is deemed that he would be making sufficient profits, that is minimum 50%. So in case your profit falls below 50%, you have to compulsorily get your books audited. I will mention an example. Suppose ABC is providing a technical services. He has received total 40 lakhs from his client from such services. In income tax, the year is from April to March. That is a financial year. Unlike not from January to March, December, it is from April, 1st April to 31st March of the next year. So he has received 40 lakhs during the year, during the financial year from such services. So as he is a professional who providing technical services and his income is within 50 lakhs, so he can claim the benefit of section 44 ADA and he can declare his income at 20 lakhs. That is 50% of 40 lakhs. Now we have to calculate tax on these rupees 20 lakhs, not on 40 lakhs. We have to calculate this tax on rupees 20 lakhs. And unlike GST, this benefit is for all. If you are, even if you are providing domestic within India or if you are providing outside India, your turnover would be computed as a whole. But this turnover will be only of your professional services. Suppose if you are doing business along with it, only the turnover of business profession 50% will be computed on that. And for business, there are other sections for which calculation is to be done. So this is the major part which we have to understand for the income. So main criteria is minimum 50% you have to show as your income of your total receipts from the profession.
Yep. So, Prasad, I just
Yes.
want you to, keep a tab on the time as well. Like we have crossed the half an hour bit, and I just want you to,
Yes.
be able to finish it within the stipulated time. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. A lot of questions though coming in. So
Yes. I'll try to cover everything in the presentation. See, we'll cover the total. So I guess major of the doubts will be solved by the end of the presentation.
yeah, and I think there are like some questions which the audience itself can answer. So guys, please like if you can add a comment or on the questions that are already posted, that will be helpful. Yeah, we'll try to cover as many questions as possible within the session, but just try to chip in wherever you can. Yep. Over to you, man.
Yes. So next we'll consider as what is the total income. See, 44 ADA business professional income is part of your total income. So what your total income includes? It includes income from your salary, that is from various employers. It includes income from house property. If you have given anything on rent, you can claim interest deduction of your home loan. It includes business and profession. If you are a partner in a firm or LLP, the salary or interest you receive will be also included under total income. Income from capital gains, it includes if you sell any of your asset like land, building, or shares, mutual funds. It will be included under capital gains. And income from other sources, which is the balance head. All other income which do not fall above under any of the above will fall under other sources like interest income, dividend income. If you receive any gift, then all these incomes are covered under this. So main thing now, how to calculate tax. Now, after the amendment, government has brought in two regimes, old regime and new regime. Old regime as will continue as it was earlier, like five up to 5 lakhs, 5%, up to 10 lakhs, 20%, and about 10 lakhs, it is 30%. You can claim the benefit of all the deductions provided by the government, and there is no such change in this. However, in the new regime, though the government has reduced the tax rates, the government has reduced the tax rates for the income, but they have withdrawn all the deductions and exemptions which were available earlier. Only for two, that is 80 CCD, if you deposit in your pension fund, and 80 JJA, that is a section if you generate employees. There are also certain conditions that you should have deposited their amount in PF, and there are various criteria to determine if you're generating employment. So only leaving these two, there are no exceptions or deductions which we can claim, which are so every time we have to consider whether this which regime is favorable to us. But one thing is to remember: if you are a salaried employee, then you can choose whether you want to go into old or new. You can change any time of the year, and every year you can change. But however, if you are a professional, if you have business income, then once you opt in to go for any one regime, suppose you are currently in old regime and you shift to new regime, then you do not have option to change it again and again. That is a one time option you have to select. And so you have to cautiously, and after considering all the aspects, you should consider that. These are the basic exemptions which we know that we can still avail in our old tax regime. That is, if you are a salaried employee, you get a standard deductions and your allowances like HRA. If you have house property, you can, if you have taken a loan, then you can claim the interest deduction. And other income, like you have life insurance, public provident fund, mutual funds, medical claim, education loan. So these are all the deductions. Due to time bound, I'll just tell this on openly. I'll share the PPT later, and will detail. I'll put some details more so it will be easily understandable. Just one thing to remember is all these deductions have to be made before 31st March. If you want to claim a deduction, this you have to make before 31st March of the year. Suppose if you are filing the return for the current year 2021-22, you have to, if you want to claim the benefit, then invest the amount before 31st March 2022. That is, by the end of the year, your all these investments should be made. If it is made in the next year, then that deductions will also be going next year, and you cannot claim it in the current year. And the income tax returns, if you are not liable to audit your plain 44 ADA income, your salaries, then your due date will be 31st July. And if you are liable to audit, like I said, if your turnover exceeds 50 lakhs or your profit is less than 50%, then in case you have to do audit, and for the audit, the date is 30th September, and ITR is to be filed within 1 month of the audit, that is 31st October. And regarding advance tax, it is liable to those whose total tax for the year would exceed, that is future liability, total tax for the year would exceed rupees 10,000. And those who are opting for section 44 ADA for showing their professional income, salaried income, already your TDS will be deducted, so no need to pay advance tax other than this. But if you are showing, if you're having business, then you have to pay 100% of your income tax by 15th March. This is one additional benefit given by the government, that you can pay your advance tax lump sum 100% by 15th of March. However, in other case, like if you have sold your asset, if you have any capital gain, or you are not covered under any benefit, you know, under 44 ADA, then there are 4 dates by which you have to pay your advance tax. This was regarding income tax.